everybody. It's me. I hope you're having a great day today. We're heading up where we last left off on Green Angel by Alice Hoffman. It's one of my favorite books. If you want to hear about part 1, I have that video uploaded. And now let's begin where we last left off. I was green, moody and prideful and angry. I will forever remember that I turned away. We had so many birds in the trees back then, and each one sang to me while I did my work. I weeded for hours until my hands ached. 3 blue jay feathers drifted down to me. I kept them in my pocket as a gift for my mother, if I decided to forgive her. The day was perfect, cloudless, and blue. Still, I continued to feel sorry for myself. At noon, I decided to take my lunch up to the hillside that overlooked the city. I let my sister's dog, Onion, trail after me, even though he was an annoying beggar who sometimes growled when he saw me. Today, Onion tolerated me because of my sister wasn't there, but I knew I was just a substitute for Aurora. It was so warm that I was tired by the time I reached the top of the hill. I can remember the way it felt to breathe in the hot, still air, the stitch in my side, the river in the distance flat as a mirror, the brambles that caught on my long black hair, the blue jay feathers in my pocket, the chattering of a wood thrush overhead, the dog whining softly, the pulse in my throat at the last moment of the world as it was. People who were close by said they could see people jumping from the buildings like silver birds, like bright diamonds. The ground shook, people said, but from where I stood all I could see was smoke. I could hear the whoosh of all the fire, all these miles away, across the river, past the woods. I could hear it as if it was happening inside my own head. I ran down the hill so fast, my clothes were torn to shreds on the brambles. My heart was in my mouth. I thought of my mother, measuring out green beans on the scale with her gentle hands. I thought of my father who could whistle so many tunes with such sweetness, every variety of bird in our garden would answer. I thought of my sister whose hair was as white as snow, the wild girl who would never stop to listen. Always the opposite of me. My sister who was as familiar as the moon above, changeable, yes, but always there for me to depend on. Ashes had swept across the river in black whirlwinds. I ran to escape them through the yard into the house, but there was no escape. Embers flew through the open windows and set the ends of my hair on fire. I wrapped a wet towel around my head. Steam rose in billows from beneath the towel, and I smelled like smoke. But worst of all, the embers had flown into my eyes. My eyes burned so badly, I grew dizzy with the pain. My sister's little dog had followed me home. He knew something was wrong, and now he barked at the sky, the world, the open door, which I ran to slam shut as I tried to stop the flow of embers. I fastened the bolt, then I held my hands over my ears. I didn't want to hear the roar of the fire, so far away across the river. I wanted silence, peace, blue skies, yesterday. But no matter what, I could hear it still. No matter what, it was burning. I crawled under the dining room table, smelling like smoke and half blinded by cinders. Little bits of hot embers flew under the door. Onion followed and laid shivering in my lap. I was Green, who was too shy to speak. Green, too angry to say goodbye. Green, who was always waiting for the future, biding her time. Now the future was here, and the silver city across the river was on fire, and I was hiding under the table, where I stayed until darkness fell. After a while, I couldn't hear the fire anymore. The dog whimpered, but I hushed him. I could barely see, but my ears were good. I was the one who could hear the wisteria unfolding. I could hear the sweet peas climbing the fence, the asparagus rising through the soil. Now, I was listening harder than ever. I was waiting for my family to come home. All they had to do was run from the fire. All they needed was to cross the river, swim if they must, crawl if need be, find their way home in the dark, in the whirlwinds, in the burning embers. Surely they would appear, if only I waited long enough. I was patient Green, after all. Green, who knew how to listen. They were in the city for only a single day. Luck couldn't be as bad as that, could it? Was that how the future worked? Unknowable, unchanging, always uncertain? They might have gone to the city the day before, or the day after. They might have been stopped by the rising of the drawbridge, by a bee sting, by the sudden storm. They might have not gone at all. But they were there when it happened, and I was not. It was days before I stopped listening for them. My mother's footsteps, my father's whistle, my sister's wild laughter. I had already decided that I would not allow myself to cry until they came home safely. Tears now would be an admission that they were gone, that I could stop listening. I wasn't ready for that. Every morning I rose from my fitful sleep in the bed I made beneath the table, expecting to find a trail of my family's footsteps on our dusty floor. I would embrace them and tell them how much I loved them. I would tell them that I'd meant to hug them and kiss them goodbye. Only then would I let the tears wash over my burning eyes. But the days wore on, and I heard nothing. Dark, fiery days that were silent as stone. No one came home. No one called out my name. Finally, I went to open the door. I could smell burning metal. I could see sparks in the trees, drifting like fireflies. All of those white pages on which I had planned to write my future were burning around the edges, first red, then black, then blue with flame. My sister's dog refused to step past the threshold. He peed in a corner. He trembled and howled. Poor Onion was missing Aurora. His howls were like mourning cries. I couldn't listen to him. So I went outside and looked up at the black sky. My eyes were still burning. My vision was blurry, but even I could tell that there were no stars. Ashes were falling down, a soft black rain. The white moths had dropped from above. They scattered like leaves, lining the stone path of our door, gleaming like black opals. I found my way back to the top of the hill. There were only a handful of silver on the other side of the river now. Pale beacons, pale light. I thought about how time had always stretched out before me. Those empty white pages that were mine alone. I had thought about how hot it had been the moment when it happened, how everything around me had been green as far as the eye could see, how the sky had been so cloudless, not even a puff of white. As I walked back to my house in the dark, making my way past the brambles, I noticed that the songbirds, who were usually asleep in their nest at this hour, were fluttering nervously from tree to tree. It was then that I realized it wasn't nighttime at all, but sooty daylight, noon perhaps. The sun had been shadowed by ashes. Now I understood. The world as I knew it was gone forever. What I had thought was the moon above, as familiar as Aurora's face, was in fact the cloudy sun. On this day, even that circle of light looked so much smaller than it once had, a teardrop in the sky. People in town must have assumed that I had perished along with my family. No one came to search for me. and that was just as well. I was glad to be deep in the woods, away from them all. If anyone had tried to rescue me, I would have just hidden behind our barn. I would have gone to the darkest part of the woods where the hedges were 10 feet tall, and the brambles cut the soles of your feet right through your shoes. My grief was cold. It was nothing to share. It was nothing to speak about, nothing to feel. I ate food from the pantry and kicked at the ashes in the garden, but I was lazy and did no work. What was the point? If this was the future, I wasn't certain I wanted to be in it. I started to feel as though I was disappearing. Perhaps I was a figment of my own imagination, a storm cloud, a wisp of smoke, a burning ember. I could hear people singing in town. I could hear the church bells ringing. People were going about their business of living as best they could. They could see past today into tomorrow. But not me. Grief had tied me into knots. There was no gas for the stove, but I didn't cut wood. There was no tap water, but I didn't go to the well. If I could have stopped breathing, I would have. I watched time moving, slowly, like dust motes, like gnats on a summer day, circling close but never touching me. I was so quiet, and the house was so dark that anyone coming to call would have guessed there was no one at home. The looters who came must have assumed that they had the freedom to do whatever they pleased, and what I had was theirs for the taking. What I had was up for grabs. And due to time constraints, that's all that I can give you for this time. If you want to hear more about Green Angel, leave me a comment or like this video. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed making it. Anyways, I hope you guys have rest and relaxation, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.